Hello again, this is David Flynn with Flynn Chiropractic. Wanted to come and talk to you guys today about vitamins. Okay, this is one of the most popular questions I get in my office is, do vitamins work? Or which ones do I even take? And today we're going to go over about how to do that. When people come into my office and they have a nutritional complaint or they're just curious about it, one of the main tests we do is a blood test to see what's in your bloodstream and what your body's actually working with nutrition-wise. And this is not part of a normal physical. Your standard physical that you get yearly does not cover this at all. We kind of test for about 34 different nutrients, and your standard physical only looks at maybe 2. So it's very not comprehensive when you get a normal physical, and it kind of misses a big piece of the puzzle in health. So that's why we look at an objective blood test to see what you're working with, and it tells the difference between you and everybody else walking around. Some people need more of one vitamin, some people need more of another. So this is a good way to test and kind of see what your different variability is between everybody else. And it helps you prescribe a little bit better, so you don't take too much of one and not enough of another. So blood tests are the key when looking at kind of nutritional levels. I recommend everybody kind of get that done at least once a year. That way we can have nutrition be a huge part of you staying healthy. And current research is just pointing to the fact that these nutrients are helping fight disease, they help fight cancer, they help fight heart disease. And there's a lot of people that are deficient, and they're deficient for years and decades. And that kind of boils over later on in life. And then all of a sudden you get hit with a disease when you've been healthy your whole life. So blood tests are the key right out of the gate of asking, do I have enough nutrients or do I not? Take a blood test. So the second thing we're going to talk about is the actual vitamin itself. Okay, do these things even work? Well, yes, they do. There's tons of research showing that vitamins work. Okay, vitamins made in a lab, synthetic vitamins, they're great. The neat thing is we can control in a study and say, if we give a person this, measure their blood, go a certain period of time on the vitamin, measure their blood again, we can see a difference, we can see a change. And that's what I do with some of my patients here. So when somebody's on a multivitamin, we want them to look at a couple different things. And that's where you're going to see if it's a good vitamin or a bad one. Okay, if you see these 3 things, you need to put the vitamin back on the shelf. Okay, because what I'm going to tell you is probably the 3 worst things to see in your multivitamin. So the front of the label, that's important, it needs to look great, but the real key is the back. Okay? Calcium comes in a bunch of different forms. But what type of calcium is in this multivitamin? That's the big key, and that's where you're going to see the rubber hit the road. So when we look down this label, we want to see calcium, and then behind it in parentheses is the type of calcium. We know there's calcium in broccoli, and then there's calcium in milk. It's packaged 2 different ways by nature. Same thing here, we absorb one well and one not so well. So when we look down here and look at calcium, in the parentheses, we do not ever want to see calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is a big, bulky, cheap form of calcium. It's a ton of calcium, but it's very hard for your body to absorb. And as we get older, we make less stomach acid, so it's harder to absorb. And when we're on things like medications that cut down on heartburn, like Nexium or Prilosec, things like that, that cuts down on your stomach acid, so you don't have enough acid to help absorb this calcium carbonate. So what I tell people is look for calcium citrate. Instead of having a ton of stomach acid, we need to absorb calcium carbonate. Calcium citrate, you just need water to help absorb. And that's easy for everybody to do. So when you're looking for a multivitamin, calcium is usually one of the first things listed. If you see calcium carbonate, do not get it. Put it back. You want to look for calcium citrate. The second thing we look for is zinc. Okay? Zinc is one of the most widely used vitamins in your body. There's over 200 reactions that we know about. And so zinc, we follow a certain rule that just like calcium carbonate, we don't want that. Zinc oxide, we don't want that either. If you kind of remember from the 80s, zinc oxide was the stuff everybody put on their nose. It was kind of fashionable back then, haven't seen it in years. But zinc oxide is what we don't want to see on the label in the parentheses. So what do we want to see? Anything else. Okay, zinc glycinate is one of the best absorbed forms of zinc. So that's one I like to push people towards, and that's what's in our multivitamin. And zinc especially is going to be really important for you athletes out there in repairing all the tissue breakdown you have, whether it's muscle, tendon, or ligament. That's really important to kind of build that stuff back up. And it's also an antihistamine, and the allergies have been terrible this year. So we want to make sure zinc is up, and we want to make sure it's the right form. And the last thing we're going to look at on this label is magnesium. So just like zinc, we don't want zinc oxide, we don't want magnesium oxide either. Okay, any other form of magnesium in here is going to be better. A lot of times magnesium citrate is a good one as well, but magnesium oxide we do not want. All right, so and magnesium is one of the most utilized nutrients in the body as well, and it's one of the ones that I find people be deficient in across the board. It's very common. So the things we do not want to see on this label is calcium carbonate, zinc oxide, and magnesium oxide. If you see those three, that's strike 1, 2, and 3, put it back, don't buy it, even if it's cheap. You can do a lot better for paying a couple dollars more a bottle. So when you go to the big box stores, sometimes necessarily cheaper and more isn't always better. A lot of times we get people in and the blood work doesn't show that they're even taking anything when they've been taking a certain type of vitamin over a long period of time. And we've even seen it on x-ray in the colon on the way out, undigested. And those are very popular brands that we see that with. So don't think that just because you find one at this big store, it's got a big brand name, that it's got a lot of bang for your buck. In New York, about last year, the New York State Attorney put a cease and desist order against GNC, Walmart, and Target because some of their products weren't labeled the correct way, and the actual product in the bottle didn't follow what the label had said. So we want to be careful about these. And that brings me to my next point. How do we know what's actually in the pill? That's where kind of the last thing you look at comes in. We look at what's called a certificate of analysis. So that when I call this company up, I can look at the number on the back and I can call up and say, do you have a certificate of analysis? And what that is a third party, an independent lab, has tested and verified with what is in the actual pill. So for each batch this company makes, we can send that off, and an independent lab verifies the contents of the pill. So we know that we're not getting calcium carbonate, zinc oxide, or magnesium oxide. And we know that we're getting the right kinds of calcium, zinc, and magnesium. And it's in the right dosage. And that there's not a lot of extra stuff in there that we don't need. Okay, because sometimes there are companies out there we've caught putting one vitamin in and calling it something else, and it's a totally different vitamin. So we have to watch out for that. But those are the big things that people ask me about a multivitamin. One last thing I'll tell you about fish oils. Okay, fish oils kind of fall into the same thing. We've got to turn it around and read the back. Even if the front says 1,000 milligrams of fish oil, what we need to do is look at the back. Okay, what research says is that for your heart health and for your joint health, we need over 1,000 milligrams of two types of fish oil, EPA and DHA. Those two types of fish oil, those are two types of omega-3s, those are the ones that help with anti-inflammatory issues in the heart and in the joints. So, when we look on the back, we want to see that EPA and DHA, we want to see that add up to over 1,000 milligrams. Sometimes when you get some of these big bulk items and you get a big giant container of these things, you look on the back and that EPA and DHA only adds up to about 300 or 400 milligrams. So you've got to triple your dosage with these things. And then when you get into that, you want to worry about what else is in the pill. Mercury, lead, PCBs, these are fish oils, so sometimes industrial runoff and things can be a problem with that, especially with pregnant women. So one, we want to check that dosage. EPA and DHA adds up to over 1,000 milligrams. So, and then the certificate of analysis we talked about, the one we have on this product, this fish oil, it comes back, tells us that dosage is right for those products, EPA and DHA, and that there are no extra things contaminating this fish oil, because when we give them to pregnant women, we want to make sure that's the case. So it clears it of mercury, lead, and PCBs. So that's kind of a quick 1-2 on multivitamins and fish oil. That's one of the most common questions we get in here, so I thought you all would like to know too. If you have any other questions, please email me or visit us at Flynn Chiropractic. You can always email us at drflynn@easttexaspainrelief.com. Thanks again.